Hello and welcome back to EJ World of Words. I'm reading New Life Cottage, my book that's out on Amazon. On part 1, we learned about the cottage in Scotland. We met the 3 protagonists, Natalie, Gabi, and Samantha. And in part 2, we learned that all 3 of these women carry some kind of trauma that is impacting their lives. Now in this part, we're going to learn about the first of the deaths. The first of the deaths that had something to do with these 3 women. So, listen. How's your mum? Gabi angled for a set of books from one precarious pile and handed it to Natalie. She's okay, I guess. When I got home, she was sleeping in my bed. Natalie took the books from Gabi and started a new pile against the back of the door. I almost feel sorry for her. Gabi looked dejected. At the cottage she had laughed and joked, but now she looked just sad. Gabi's demeanor disturbed Natalie. What's bothering you, though? There's something else, no? The eyes locked and Gabi twisted uncomfortably. Mum wants me to move out. Natalie ensured that the books could not tumble over and gestured for her friend to sit. Come on, I'm sure it's time for a break. They sat on one side of the large settee, crowded together. Natalie's mother had always taken up the other side. For years she had lain there, reading her books, watching her TV soaps, eating, drinking, living in that one corner. Cushions had supported her weak back. Her mother could quickly cover herself with blankets that still rested at the end of her corner for extra warmth. Neither Gabi nor Natalie wanted to disturb this order of Natalie's mother's life. There weren't even any boxes or bric-a-brac piled on the rest of the spaces. This was purposely left free, as if the ghost of her mother still remained. I knew she wanted me out, but now she seems to really want to hurry, Gabi sighed. Do you think it's because of your brother? Natalie put her arm around her friend, looking at her mother's corner, imagining her still there. She says that now she's retiring, the apartment is not big enough for the both of us. She says, I need to work and get my own place. She says that I've lived off of her long enough. She was almost spiteful when she said that. Gabi nestled into the embrace, warm and comfortable, motherly. What are you going to do? I have to move out, I just don't know where to go. Any ideas? They suddenly giggled, the mood shifting from low to high at the speed of a thought. I hope you protested. I sure did, but I guess that in the long run, she's doing me a favor. Us. I think she's doing us a favor. At least she won't have to tell her where you're going when you're going. I think this is excellent. They both snuggled closer into each other. So you're okay if I stay here for a while? Their heads came together. Their hair mingled. Warmth flowed. As long as you help me with all this stuff, I don't mind. Natalie pointed at the piles of books and collectibles. When can I move in? Did you bring clothes and a toothbrush? Yep. Then you already moved in. We can get your other stuff some other time soon. What about work? I only volunteer at the hospital when I feel like it, so they're used to me not being there regularly. Not an issue. They fell silent. Suddenly Gabi shifted. You know what? What? Gabi sat up, a smile spread over her face, her eyes sparkled. Your mother would hate me being here. Natalie raised her hand for a high five, hands met, fingers linked. Oh yes, she sure would. Fantastic. They gazed at each other smiling and curled into their own thoughts. Remember the time when she would not let you borrow her car so you could not come and visit me? And do you remember the time when she wouldn't let us get into her kitchen and bake a cake after we ruined her waffle iron? Remember when she didn't want to give me your address because she thought you'd be better off without me? Remember when... Oh hell, she would hate you being here. Do you want to move into her old room? Gabi shrank. Yikes, that room? No, that's creepy. Can I stay with you? They laughed. Natalie nodded. As long as you don't snore. More giggles. You know I don't. Not like you. This is going to be great. I wish Sam could be here. We have to get back to the cottage soon. Remember, it's her turn next. They nodded and smiled. The dream was always the same. It was night. He swam naked in a white lake. He was alone. The friction of the water against his body, gliding along, propelled with each strong stroke of his arms, every push of his legs moving him further away from the shore. He could feel the water, could almost taste its sweetness. He could feel the loneliness, the absence of another's heartbeat. He felt fresh and clean and content. He felt exhilarated. The silence was absolute. His movement in the water made no noise. His breathing was silent. No animals, no people, nothing. Just him in the lake. He had no idea where he was trying to swim across or whether the other side even was where he was trying to get. But he swam, and he liked it, enjoyed the swim, enjoyed being by himself and loved being naked in the water. His dream, the same dream always. Seconds before the sound of the alarm rippled the surface of his perfect lake, his arm automatically stretched out and silenced it. He enjoyed the quietude of the lake. It stayed with him for a long while if he followed the usual routine to get up immediately without waking the woman by his side. 4 a.m. He was so used to rising in the middle of the night that he did not need the alarm. In the darkness he could make out his wife wrapped up under the blanket. Sandra had a few more hours before she needed to start her day. Good for her. If he now crept away to the bathroom without waking her, the feeling of the lake would remain. The silence, the exhilaration, the good stuff within himself that the dream brought. Quietly he stretched, eyes half closed in the blue darkness, walked over to the bathroom, took a piss, brushed his teeth, and then got dressed. Sandra always left his clothes on the bathtub. This was the routine, and he liked it. This was how things went in the house. It had to be like this, particularly when he had to be at the hospital by 6 a.m. for an early shift. He yawned. He did not mind, but getting up this early really was not good for his system. He wished he could stomach coffee, but he always got diarrhea when he drank it too early in the day on an empty stomach. At the kitchen sink he filled a glass with water and gulped it down in one. It did not taste good. There was a metallic aftertaste, and he blew into his fist to smell. In his position as head nurse, bad breath simply was not acceptable, and so he went back to the bathroom, brushed his teeth again, gurgled with breath freshener, and tried again. It still smelled bad, so he looked for breath mints. There were none left in the bathroom cabinet, and he thought for a moment where else he should look. He could wake Sandra, but he really preferred the quiet of the morning. He rummaged through the side table in the hall, a couple of drawers in the kitchen, all the while trying to keep the noise down. The lake had to remain, the feeling unencumbered by Sandra or the kid. By the time he realized that they were out of breath mints and that he would have to pull into a gas station on the way, or even wait till he reached the hospital cafeteria, he was already late by about 10 minutes. He yawned again. Shit. He could not afford to be late. There was an important department meeting dead on 6 a.m. He only could hope that there was no traffic on the way. Maybe he could speed just a little. Thankfully he knew the roads well and knew where he could accelerate and where he had to be careful. Shit again. He had not had anything to eat yet. In the kitchen he looked at the bread bin. Nothing. He would have to talk to Sandra. It was her role to check that there was bread for his breakfast. What was she thinking? What was she doing all day long? Shit, double shit. Out of the corner of his eyes he saw the walnut banana bread that he had brought back from his visit with his mother the day before. No matter how much he despised his useless sister, bake she could. But to munch down on that loaf in a hurry this morning? Nah, this needed to be eaten with a nice cup of tea, with plenty of time and leisure. He would leave this bread for later, maybe after a shift tonight. For once, he left the house without breakfast and in a hurry. Outside, darkness enveloped him. During the night it had gotten cold, and there was a bit of moisture on the grass down the path to the garage and the cars. Halfway down and he almost slipped. It would not be long before winter would take a grip, and driving in the morning would become treacherous. In the car, he turned on the music first. Once on the road, he would increase the volume till it was real loud just to wake himself up properly. It helped. It always worked. For a while he had tried with the AC blowing, but the cold air straight at his face gave him a head cold, and so he donned a scarf and opened the window instead. Once it snowed, he would open the window all the way. There was something about a cold, snowy night that made him happy inside. The sensation of icy air hitting his face like needles, turning his pale skin bright red and alive. He would have to wear a woolen hat, but his lungs would appreciate the clean air. Madonna. He had no idea why he liked Madonna. But first thing in the morning, he loved this old CD. When he upgraded his car and went from tape to CD, he copied the album because he truly liked it. It made him smile. He always sang along to La Isla Bonita and Like a Virgin. He liked these songs best. But first, he quietly rolled down the hill, away from the house, and turned left onto the main road. His car was the only one around. There were no others. There were no other lights either behind or in front. By now it was 4:50 and should have been only 4:35. 15 minutes to make up. Outside the limits of his village, he accelerated. The car handled well and pulled away. He liked his small Toyota. His dad had wanted him to buy another Golf, but he had put his foot down. The Toyota handled better, pulled away faster, offered more room, and, most importantly, was a whole lot cheaper. So far he had been right with his choice. Even the maintenance was less costly, and so he was feeling good about the vehicle. His dad was right in many instances, but this once he had the better know-how. Weird old man set in his ways. His father would never touch a foreign car. He slowed down and turned left. No need to indicate, there still was nobody else around. He could have used the motorway. Sometimes he did, but there were major roadworks halfway along his route, so this old way was the better choice this morning. When he turned right into the valley, he knew there were a couple of tight turns coming up, and he slowed. He yawned. He pushed himself up in his seat. Through the second curve, his inside back wheel lost traction for the fraction of a breath. For only a tiny moment he felt his car slip. His palms clamped around the steering wheel, his heart rate increased, his brow started to sweat, despite the cold morning air filtering in through the gap in the window. It only took a moment, and he was back in control. He checked the clock and noticed that he had caught up and almost was where he needed to be. Loudly, he exhaled. No worries. He knew what he was doing. He increased the volume of the CD, replayed La Isla Bonita, and started to sing. He had driven this road so often over the last few years that he could drive it in his dreams. He knew every turn, every driveway funneling in from left and right, every bump, every inch of tarmac. What he did not know was that the previous evening a local farmer had damaged the narrow hard shoulder with his mega big new tractor. A couple of subsequent lorries had broken the surface of the tarmac, and where there was solid surface yesterday, there was now a distinct dip in the road and cracked asphalt as sharp as shards of glass. He knew what he was doing. He steered his car close to the side of the road so he could take the next curve better. A loud pop, and before he knew what was happening, the front wheel was cut to the rim, and he lost control of his car for good. The Toyota jumped and bucked over the torn front wheel, skipped and slid across the road. Hubert tried to slow down, tried to keep the car straight. Madonna cried out, but he did not hear her. His concentration was in his hands at the steering wheel. As the car slithered against the snow poles at the side of the road, there was a pop, a bang, where the wood smacked the surface of the metal. His mind turned his movements into slow motion as the car spun, hit a small tree by the side before careening across and down a ditch. The tires left the ground, the airbag inflated, hitting him hard on the chest. He gasped. He let go of the steering wheel. There was nothing left to control anyway. A big thump, and the car hit the embankment. It flipped and rolled a few times before it stopped on its roof. Madonna stopped singing. Hubert's body was cut and bruised. He could taste blood. He could not feel his feet. He was hanging upside down and slowly slipped into unconsciousness. He could hear the blood pulse in his ears. He could feel the warm sleeve and cold take hold of his body. This was it. This was the end. His end. His last thought should have been of his wife and child. Instead, he regretted that he had not wolfed down that walnut banana bread. To die on an empty stomach. Then his lights went out. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you, and come back and see whether there's more postings you like. Bye.